Hi, welcome to TLC's Creative Art Corner. I'm Miss Susan and I hope you had a blessed week. Today we are going to paint emojis. So what's an emoji? Well, it comes from the Japanese word meaning picture. So basically it's a pictograph of an idea, an object, or a smiley, and you've all seen those. Usually it has eyes and a mouth and it expresses some sort of a feeling. You know the saying, one picture says 1,000 words. Well, that's what emojis do, aren't they? Okay, well, here are some examples. Here I did 4 on an A3 paper. I drew the squares, 4-inch squares, and I did 4. So you can see I did some cartoon characters here. Do you know who they are? Well, I won't tell you. Okay, and then some others that are very familiar. Now you can make these as very simple or as complex as you like. This is a very simple one that you've probably seen a lot as well, or something a lot more complex. And there's a whole host of in between that we'll show you, from simple to complex. Some examples. So what materials will you need? First, you want to protect your surface and put an apron on. You're going to need 4-inch square panels, okay, 1 for each emoji, or you can draw them on a heavy paper. Here, 4 of them fit very nicely, like I showed you earlier, on A3 paper. Now, I don't recommend A4 copy paper for this. You can probably use poster paints or gouache, but I am going to use acrylics. You will also need chalk. Okay. A pencil, no, I wouldn't say a pencil because it gets really messy. You're going to need some brushes. Now, you're going to start with the big brush. So I'm going to recommend 3 brushes. You want a small, a medium, and a large. This would be the large brush. Now, it doesn't have to be this large, but something bigger to cover your surface, and you'll see that in a minute. You will also need what they call a filbert. Now, a filbert is a little bit rounded at the top. It's still a flat brush, but it's rounded at the top, and these are great for doing circles and curves. You could also use a round brush, okay? Now, a bigger one or a small one for the details. So whatever you have, use whatever you have. Now, you're going to need something to put your paints on. Now, I don't recommend paper plates, and I'll tell you why. Because in this climate that I'm in, the paint seems to dry out. The paper seems to absorb the moisture that's in the paint. It dries out really quickly. So I don't like that. So I like using the plastic plates, or even a glass plate at home, or something plastic. It helps really nicely. Keeps it moisture a little bit longer. Okay, so you need that. You're going to need water and something to put it in. I usually have, when I do this project, I usually have 2 containers, and I'll show you what to do with the other container when we get started. Okay, you're going to need a black marker. You're going to need either towel or paper towels to clean up at the end. Now, so hit pause, go get your materials, come on back, and we'll start this project together. Hi, welcome back. So here I have my 4-inch canvas panel, and I have my acrylics on my palette. Okay, I put out the yellow, the white, the red, and the black. I didn't put out blue because I don't think on the one I'm going to do that I'm going to use blue. But if you wanted to, you could use blue when you're somewhere. Okay. Now, what I do before I start, I like to have mine, when I do the background, I like to have it up, because otherwise I'm painting it onto my surface, and then sometimes it'll stick. And so this way it's off the table, and it probably dries a little bit better. Okay, now acrylics are not watercolor, but you're still going to use a little bit of water. So we're going to start with our background, which is in yellow. The first thing we do is dip our brush in water. You don't have to dip it all the way in, just the tip of it, and then wipe it off the side of the container. Then you're going to pick up your yellow like this, if you can see this. Okay, on one side, flip the brush over and pick up some more. Okay, you don't have to come all the way up on the bristles. Okay, just on the end. This is loading your brush. Okay, and then you're going to come over here. I have mine set up here. I'm going to hold it down and I just press back and forth. Okay, and I go back and forth, or you can go up and down. I wouldn't recommend going in circles. And I like to cover my sides a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to come pick up some more. Okay. And then if I feel like the paint is not moving, I can dip it again in a little bit of water. Here, I'll show you. Okay, I got that, and I'm just going to dip the tip in water. Okay, and then hopefully it'll go a little bit smoother. Now, yellow is pretty pretty much a transparent color. And what does that mean? It means you can see through it pretty easily, whereas white is what they call an opaque color, and you usually can't see through it, but you know, all paints are different with their pigments. Okay, so that when it's covered, you set it aside, let it dry, and acrylics dry really quickly. Now before you go on to the next color, you're going to clean your brush off before you put it in water. Okay, you want to clean it off, because that way your water won't get so contaminated. So we're going to clean the brush off as best as we can, clean all the paint off, and then you can swish it in the water. And I would suggest switching it, don't bang it up and down, because that will ruin the brushes and separate the filaments. So I would say go back and forth like this, and I'll show you on the table, and then wipe it here. Okay, like I would, in the jar, I would kind of go like that. Okay, swish it back and forth a few times, and don't have to be violent with it. Okay, when you have a deeper container, it's different. Okay, okay. See, now my brush is pretty clean. Okay, and I'm not gonna. Don't let your brush stand in the water, because that will absorb, and it can ruin the brush too. So it can still be damp when you do this, and just set it aside. So when it's dry, okay, we're going to take our chalk and we're going to design our emoji or our face. So I'm going to do an attitude of some kind, and I thought I'd do something that's kind of teasing. So I'm going to draw my circle for the one eye. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, that's fine. And that might even be too big. And the nice thing about chalk is that you can erase it at the end, even just with your finger a little bit. You get a little bit wet, and you can erase it off. Okay, let it dry a second. Okay, so I didn't want that big of a circle, but okay. You know, just eyeball your circle, and then I'm going to have a closed eye here, and maybe a eyebrow there, an eyebrow there, and then I want a big sort of smile, and I'm going to put a tongue out. This around here, pretend this comes up here and there. Now I'm going to decide to myself, oh no, it's not, I want it a little bit wider, so I'm going to do that. Yeah, make it a little bit wider there. Okay, so this isn't important there. So here's my design. Okay. Now we're going to paint, and I'm going to take my filbert. Okay, and get it a little bit wet, or I don't. I'm going to pick up my white, do the same thing, you know, and then I'm going to go around. This is what's nice. I think you can get a nice circle with them around it. Now with white, you're probably going to have to do a second coat, not a crisis. Now, while that's drying, we can work on another color. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit more. Don't worry about if your circle isn't perfect, if your eye isn't perfect, because you can use your marker at the end to straighten it all out. So I'm going to clean my brush now. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the red and do my tongue. Okay. 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 And I do the same thing, get a little bit wet. You don't have to keep it in one place. You can move it around to make it work for you. Okay. Red is also sort of a semi-transparent color, and sometimes you need to put a second coat. Now I'm going to take a smidge, less than a smidge of black, just a little bit, just to try to darken it a little bit. And I just want to put a little crease in the tongue. From the top down. It's not going to move. Sometimes you got to get it pretty liquidy. It's really hard to get, oops, it's really dark. There we go. Yeah, it's real hard when you use the round brush to have the hand coordination and how much consistency and the amount of water to get it to flow. Okay. So I just want to put a little crease down the middle of the tongue. It doesn't have to be that dark, just to give it some dimension. There. So you can see it has a little bit of a dimension there. Now I'm going to put another layer on the eye of white. So now I cleaned off my brush and I'm putting another layer on so that it's dry. Now that it's dry enough. Usually you would make, be sure it's absolutely dry, but for the purposes of this is fine. Okay, so now it's nice and bright white. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the black. I'm going to make my mouth black. I'm going to use the same brush and probably a little bit of the detail brush. I'll make sure my brush is clean. Okay, now you don't need a whole lot of black. Okay, here it is. Both sides of the brush, the tip. And you can fill in the big part with this brush and then use your finer one to get into the corners and around the edges. Now if you wanted to, you could have made red lips go around and then fill in the middle. But I wanted to make this one, simple, just to show, the process. I just love this filberts because you really do get a nice edging. And don't worry about the chalk being there because at the end we can wipe it all off when it's dry. It's really easy. Okay, and I'm going to come in slow here. Now I'm going to use, to get in these corners here, I'm going to use my detail brush. Okay, I'm going to use my small detail brush. Okay, this one as you can see. And I'm just to get into this corner here. And sometimes it's really tedious or difficult to get the control you want. But like I said, at the end you can go over everything with a Sharpie and fill in the blanks. That's certainly what I end up doing all the time. And then if I want, I'm going to come in here. And now that that's a little more dry. So I give that a little texture. Now, rather than use the fine brush to do my details here, I'm going to use a Sharpie, because I get nervous and then if you don't have enough water on it, all this kind of thing. So just, we can use a Sharpie. But if you feel you want to use your paintbrush, go right ahead. You would just fill it like I showed you and then, in fact, I'll do the one for you. I'll do this one eyebrow, okay? So I like to roll it off in the thing, okay? Maybe get it a little liquidy, then it flows better. Okay. So how do I want to do it? Okay. See, this is a problem that you have because it's the chalk is interfering a little bit here. But that's okay if it's thicker. And then I'll also use this one to do a center of the eyeball. The eyeball always gives the face, whatever face you're doing, it gives it its real expression. Where you put the eye, the pupil of the eye. Sometimes you put white in it, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so for the most part, this is done. We're going to let this dry, and then we're going to go over it with a Sharpie, and then we'll have our emoji. Now I cleaned the chalk off, and I'm not happy with the black outlining, so I'm going to take my Sharpie again and go over it again, because I think that there was interference from the chalk. But again, if you don't want to do this particular step, it's quite all right up to you. And I wouldn't go real fast so you can control. So there we have it. There's our finished emoji. Okay, I hope you enjoyed painting and designing emojis. I did. And I like all the different expressions that the eyes can give. I also enjoy capturing the expressions of cartoon characters. And I look forward to seeing your emojis. So please send your masterpieces to the address on the screen and we'll post them on TLC's website. And also send me your suggestions and comments. Tell me how you liked doing this and how you liked working with acrylics. So until next time, stay safe, be healthy, and be a blessing to others. Bye-bye.